Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is 9 of Cups in its reversal. This is very intriguing. One of the things that we're identifying right now, remember what I said? And this is very important. What was effectively happening that was coming to the surface in relation to situations and scenarios yesterday? This is that discernment point between what is in one's own capacity and ability to change versus what one feels like you just have to come into a point of acceptance with. So we even recognize and see here energetically, this act of discernment to a certain extent is what is amplifying a lot of connections, either moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency or working through that path of separation from energy that feels like it is not ready to necessarily build in the way that you want to grow and form at this time. It is having a different impact depending on where you are on these frequencies. Now, masculine and feminine that are in the heart of the divine union frequency. Remember when I talked about that feeling of that unplaceable experience of feeling some kind of like intangible anxiety or fear? This is effectively allowing you that space of grounding into that energy, recognizing what is in your own capacity to control, adjust, and change versus what is not. And the act of love that we're actually seeing here right now in the divine union frequency is actually coming through via that path of discernment in terms of recognizing what you need to bring forth, what you feel you want to amplify, even in the frequency of the divine union, versus that sense or that recognition point of something that you just need to recognize and embody and ground within the self. That ability to do this right now is having a different impact depending on whether you align to feminine or masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Now, for feminine energy, this is again feeling that strength exercise. It almost feels like this act of energetic or spiritual resilience, if you will, because this is the observation of any kind of unactionable anxiety that is potentially coming up, but not wanting to effectively put or thrust those anxieties onto another, because especially what do you do when you have an anxiety or fear that is unnameable that you put upon another? You just amplify the negative. You just amplify. It's like you put a sounding board. You give like a vocalization to something that is not necessarily anxiety point. And for that exact reason, we see that the energetic act of love in the divine union is almost working through that energetic suppression, if you will. And I want to say, when I say this energetic suppression, it is not from a place of not wanting to be open and honest with the other. It is more of an act of cultivating and caretaking the energy of another by navigating what you're effectively putting forth to them. So we see even now the energy in the divine union frequency is recognizing and ascertaining what they feel that those frustrations, those anxieties, those doubts, those fears, what feels like it actually can have something that can be functional, that can serve a purpose, that can be practically changed or accommodated upon, versus what just needs to be pushed down. And I don't want to say pushed down, because push down is like that act. It's like what needs to be integrated is probably the better word. What needs to be integrated within the self, just allowing yourself to fall into it. Remember when I mentioned that aspect of like sinking deeper into the feeling? Just allowing oneself to embody and integrate that anxiety point is what is allowing a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency that is stretching out one's own heart space. That is why we see even now, interestingly, the divine union frequency is almost doing this as an act of energetic protection towards the other. And it feels like, again, that moment that is like, again, it's like saying, it's like the amplification of the positive and the negation of the negative. Like this is that energy of like effectively transferring that into positivity, because that ability to take that unsayable thing and move it and incorporate it into something that you can just embody is effectively sinking into the feeling that helps you move it into a positivity point again. So we see that a lot of the energy right now in the divine union frequency is energetically doing this for the sake of the other. That's that love frequency that turns everything into love. Now, masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union, this ability right now, being able to do this, this ability to do this is what is amplifying the energy that is truly moving into the divine union frequency right now, versus the energy that may allow their own anxieties, their own fears, their own mind running away from them, worst case scenarioing someone moving in a certain way and misinterpreting the fact that you guys are on the same coursework. For some of the energy right now, the ability to do this, to shut down, as it were, to take those anxieties and doubts and fears and say to oneself, there's no basis for that. There's no reason to feel that. Being able to ground through that is what is amplifying now the energy that is moving back into the divine union frequency, because again, that is that becoming the trust exercise. That is becoming that moment or that opportunity wherein energetically someone is able to amplify. That is not a fact. That is not something that is occurring. That is something I am feeling. And to a certain extent right now, being able to process through that, it does feel like a bit of a trust fall, if you will. A lot of this energy right now is effectively moving into the heart of the divine union frequency and almost saying like, why is it that as I become closer to this person, more of these anxieties pop up? Because they're becoming like you're feeling the full breadth of the emotional or energetic expansion that begins to occur when you're coming into that frequency. So we see here that what we are experiencing right now is something that is very much for the energy of the divine union, is very much the same energy we're seeing in the heart of the divine union frequency, which is protecting the other from the worst fears of the self, not projecting them out onto the other person. So even now, that ability to process here, it may be coming via the realms of communication. So there may be more communication occurring in these spaces or places to help build that level or degree of discernment in relation to what feels like it is energetically viable versus what can effectively be tamped down. What is effectively happening here? That ability to, again, not like energetically let those doubts and fears create that separation point, but instead let that, much like the energy in the divine union, build even more connective tissue between you. That in itself right now is what we are seeing that is happening, that may be creating a little bit of like anxiety, because what did we see was happening for the energy in the divine union right now? Masculine wants to rush forward. Feminine wants to slow down. Being able to misinterpret the fact that both of these energies are moving towards the same direction, but they have different ways of going about it at this time, may create a place where you may assume actions of the other mean something that they don't. So we see that through the expression of these doubts and fears, that is how we can effectively fortify being able to recognize what you may be misinterpreting at this time versus, again, a warranted act of recognizing something that you feel like it should not be there versus something that is effectively just coming up because of that expansive energy of feeling your heart space opening up. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is actually where this energy right now is doing the most service. And it actually is a little frustrating because that energetic frequency, it's really helping build a point of karmic healing right now in relationality to someone recognizing what is and is not in alignment at this time in separation. And the act in that separation space, this is going to feel like, again, we saw that for a lot of this energy in separation, going through that act of discernment right now is what is showing what actually feels like it can come into a state or space of healing, as it were, versus that point of recognizing something that you feel is not ready to meet you where you are. What we're effectively seeing, and it is having a different impact depending on whether you align to feminine or masculine energy. For feminine energy in this modality, this is going to express itself in that sense of, again, if this is energy that's coming towards you from a need-based modality, if this is energy that's like coming towards you and saying, I need something, this is feminine energy. Again, if this is the same exact reason that led to the feminine being in separation, this is feminine saying, I approached you with a need, and when I approached you with a need, it led to separation. This is almost feminine saying, can you recognize that this is the amplification on why there is a disruption point here? Because you're trying to continue a connection wherein you don't give to me when I am in need, because this separation has been caused because I said I needed something from you, but you're still feeling that validity point potentially of coming towards me at a time that you need something. This is an amplification on an imbalance point. So for a lot of the energy right now, having that point of observation coming through, seeing an energy coming towards you, but not seeing necessarily an energy that's like learned that they need to give forth instead of ask or take. A lot of feminine energy is almost taking that moment of saying, like, that's what an energetic cord cutting feels like. That's that moment of saying, I can't keep giving of myself if you're not going to give of yourself in the same way. Masculine energy in separation right now, if this is a modality wherein you were in separation because you tried to be open towards the feminine energy, you tried to say, I recognize I need to give you, I need to offer you my honesty, I need to offer you my clarity, I need to give you my emotional self so that we can truly build together. If this is a masculine that tried to do this and this led to a rejection space, a feminine saying, I don't want to know those things. I don't want to see that side of you. I don't want that openness of experience. This is masculine, but at the same time, a feminine trying to say, can you please just come back the way you were before? Can you please come back with that false sense of self that you were showing me? Can you please come back with that imaginary version of yourself that you presented to me? This is masculine saying, I can't do that. Because the moment that the masculine opened up was like the moment that the masculine dropped the mask of the self. And this is masculine saying, you don't understand, when I took that mask off, it broke apart. I can't put it back on. Like that was that process of coming into self. And so this is masculine saying, I can't walk back. I can't go back to being that false sense of self, if you will. I can only show you my authentic expression of now. So what we see right now energetically is a lot of clearing of karmic cycles that are potentially happening at this time. And there's a lot of heaviness here. But we see that for the energy and separation, this is effectively allowing for a lot of breakthrough energy as well. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, what we're effectively seeing. 2 of Wands. And what we're seeing, and again, for masculine, okay, for the energy in separation, you can see why this frequency, why it's, even though it's so hard for the energy in the divine union or coming into divine union to bear, because it feels more like that rockiness, especially if the energy in the divine union, it's really doing a lot of heavy lifting right now in helping someone come into a point of observation, both masculine and feminine energy. In separation right now, there may be something that is occurring wherein someone is trying to move towards you, but it's building that sense of clarity and recognition and saying, you don't seem to understand, you don't seem to see, you don't seem to recognize that what you're presenting forward is in fact articulating upon the limitation point. And this is why we see that there may be a lot of inactivity that's potentially happening here, because there's that moment that may be experiencing and expressing the profound frustration in trying to articulate to someone where you are versus someone feeling like they're not necessarily recognizing or understanding. And this is almost that moment that we're seeing that there's that energetic point of saying we're just in very different places. Right? And we see here at the same time that this is happening, this could be potentially happening right now as someone is unpacking that situation and scenario with someone else. Because we see here that this is that moment that, again, it feels a little bit like a moment that we see that there's some energetic confirmation that is potentially happening here. And it's going on both sides of this, because I will say there is some energy here that could be amplifying reconciliation in some modalities. But what are we seeing that is the amplification point between the energy that is feeling like that presentation of someone coming back in this capacity right now is that moment of feeling the affirmation of someone that doesn't seem to have that ability to change versus the energy that feels like it does. It is the difference with someone saying, I need you to do this. I need this from you. I am in a place of her masculine. If this is masculine, go back to feminine going, I need. This is feminine going, I know you need, but what are you going to give? And not give from a place of like material. What are you going to give energetically? When are you going to meet me in that emotional state of opening up emotionally, building that connective tissue? This is feminine. Again, if this is masculine coming from that need point, this is the amplification of feminine energy going, can you not see that you're not ready? And this is, again, not a feminine energy that's like letting go of something. It's saying, it's feeling that point of saying like, it almost is reaffirming some feminine energy and feeling the uncertainty of whether someone will be able to come into that modality. That is why we see here feminine energy is maintaining and always retaining hope, but at the same time is effectively just using their objectivity or their power of perception to see if someone is moving towards them in the way that they feel like they ought to receive and deserve. While for masculine energy right now, if this is masculine energy that is simultaneously going through that, you're going through the same experience. Now, again, the energies that are coming into reconciliation, as I said, the observation point in saying, I recognize what I was not giving you. I understand that that separation point was being met by a need that was not being received. For feminine, that's going to be the masculine effectively identifying and observing, not coming towards the feminine saying, I need something, saying, I recognize what I wasn't giving you. I recognize what I wasn't giving you. And even now we see that for the feminine energy experiencing that, this is a bit of a wait and see that's happening, because this is feminine energy basically saying like, words are good, actions are actually the expression of this. So we see that even now there's a feminine energy that is potentially receptive to hearing masculine articulate upon what they feel like they have accommodated or changed for, but taking a lot of care and consideration in terms of how the masculine is going to put that into practice. While for masculine energy in separation, there's an observation point of reconciliation that's potentially opening up here too, which would again be a feminine energy that would effectively identify and recognize and say to the masculine, I understand that I was not creating an environment wherein you felt like you were emotionally safe. I recognize that you tried to bring forward your truth to me, and that was not something that I was open and available to. And I don't want you to feel like you cannot be open and expressive to me. I don't want to make you kind of feel like you have to operate in a space of building a world of illusion around me. So we see here that even now, energetically, one way or another, a huge amount of healing that's happening right now in separation. The energy that's coming into divine union right now, this is why I was saying it's so important to be communicating right now about some of those anxieties and doubts and fears, but not coming from a fear-based mentality, not coming from an accusation, an accusatory, or blame-based framework. If you're feeling something, even having a moment or opportunity here to articulate about your anxieties and doubts and fears, the divine union frequency has ample room to hold space for someone else's anxieties. This is where we process a lot of these abandonment wounds. So what we're effectively seeing here right now is what is the energy doing right now that's coming into the divine union, continuing forward on building that trust within each other, recognizing and saying to a certain extent, I want to show you, you can express those uncertainties here. There's no way for me to articulate upon what could be the difference between an unnamed anxiety versus a reality beyond you expressing it. So we see here even now that ability to energetically discuss something, but not from an accusatory framework, but from a place of saying, I am feeling, I have these worries, I have these doubts, I have these fears. The divine union saying, bring those forward here so that I can heal them. That's effectively what we're doing right now in relationality to the energy coming into the heart of the divine union. Now, masculine and feminine, ironically, in the heart of the divine union, you're doing the opposite right now. This is that moment that, again, not wanting to add to the burdens of the other, because again, there's not the point of requiring or needing to create some space of deepened trust here. It's more about moving right now in an act of empathy, grounding through a frustration or fear that is actionable versus unsolvable is the difference right now that we see that is parsing out that's happening in the divine union, because it's feeling like that energetic act of protection, if you will. Protecting someone from your own unactionable fears and anxieties. Like that in itself is a bit of that amplification of the gift of the divine union frequency, because it almost feels like this energetic expansion, holding space, if you will, amplifying the positive, just pushing down anything that, no, I don't want to say pushing down, integrating anything that feels like it is not serving a purpose and channeling it into something positive. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Third card in our 5-card spread is, we have here our 10 of Swords in its reversal. And what we're effectively seeing right now in relation to the masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, is for masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. This ability to effectively, again, come into a space of working to energetically protect one another from the difference between what you feel is an action point, what you feel is something that actually feels like it serves a purpose, versus almost feeling something that you're like, that's unnecessary, I don't need to bring it forth. That ability here is effectively that moment or that opportunity that we see is moving in a place, and I have to stress this, the gift that we are seeing here is being able to just move into that point of creating that ability to hold space within the self, like almost acting as like an energetic warden, if you will, on what you bring into that partnership, versus what you feel that you just need to channel into something that feels more positive and productive. So we see even now for the energy in the divine union frequency, this is an enlivening process. This is a process that you're taking remember I told you, taking some of that trigger, taking some of that anxiety that you were feeling that you couldn't put a place to it, and it's motivating you, because it's almost like transforming it into the feeling of a shield, transforming it into an act of protection, transforming it into an act of love, if you will. So even now we are seeing that ability to do so, it feels like it is expansive, because it feels like you are energetically carrying it, not just for yourself. You're not letting yourself get bogged down by it. You feel like you're doing it to serve the purpose of energetically protecting that which you care about. While for masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency, this is why I said you got to work through this right now. You got to make sure that you put this in a productive space. You got to put it in a productive space right now, because what we're effectively identifying is the ability here. This is the abandonment wound, running up. trying to disrupt something that is going well. Coming up when everything is moving in a positive, peaceful way, starting to have those like little thoughts, all these like, if everything's going well, like again, what are you doing energetically right now? If things are moving in a positive, productive way, but then all these little thoughts start popping up. You're taking that moment, you're parsing them out, you're working them through together. And even now, some of this could be that feeling of having to unpack some things from the past. One of the things that we see here, and this is the problem with the lessons from the past, is that while they build that architecture in what we can change within the self, they do also validate moments that we feel that others did not move the way that we would hope or aspire them to. So even now, some of that anxiety that is potentially coming forward right now, this is why it's so important that rather than doing what the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency is doing right now, in terms of utilizing that as like an energetic shield, if you will, the energy that is coming into the divine union right now, you are utilizing this in a way of being able to articulate to each other and on those doubts and fears. Not running away from each other, not letting them get the better of you, but again, letting it build towards one another, building that connective tissue, being able to say to one another, you know, I'm going to express this to you. I'm not saying that it's happening, but I want to articulate to you my anxieties and doubts and fears, because what is the energy coming into the divine union doing? Going, I can put a balm on that. I can tell you, I can alleviate that from you. And this is almost that moment that we're seeing, that is someone effectively saying to a certain extent, listen, I know, and this is even energy saying, you know, I'm worried about bringing forth this because there was a time in the past wherein I tried to bring forward, like this is energy right now that's even saying to someone energetically in the divine union frequency, I'm afraid to bring this forward to you because I'm afraid that you're going to use this as an act of separation. Like you're going to push me, you're going to like push me away when I express an anxiety, which almost like further affirms that anxiety. So what is the energy right now navigating that is having those doubts and fears? They're saying, bring them forward. No, I'm actually going to go out of my way to show you that that doubt or fear is not something that you have to worry about. Because this is that amplification of realizing that whatever that's being held here, that ability to show someone that they're not trying to control one's, you know, it's not a space or place of saying you can't think this, you can't think that, but saying like, I want to show you that anything that you bring forward to me, I can try to fix. That ability of seeing that to a certain extent right now, that effectively is allowing a point of recognizing and feeling like, again, deeper into the heart of the divine union. Because this is almost someone saying, I'm afraid to come forward with that anxiety point. And again, instead of acting upon it and assuming, coming into voicing is saying someone it's you're giving it something here that can tangibly be impacted. You're asking the other to say like, I know you're not asking me to show you. It's almost someone saying like, let me show you, you know? Now, masculine and feminine in separation right now, the problem that we're seeing is there's a lot of this energetic return that's potentially happening right now around some circumstances and situations. And it can feel, I gotta say, it's feeling very energetically difficult right now because a lot of this path work right now feels like a path of deep discernment that is potentially happening around circumstances and situations that there may have been some kind of pause point on. Even now, we see that there's some energetic movement right now of energy that's like moving forward potentially into new connections. So even now, we see that there's a little bit of this back and forth here because, again, it is working through the act of discernment right now in terms of recognizing and identifying the difference between someone coming back towards you from a place where they actually recognize and identify what they need to effectively change to be able to come into healing versus energy that may just be kind of returning and almost like amplifying that the problem, like the circumstances that were creating an imbalance are still very much present. So for a lot of the energy right now, it's either like one or the other here that I'm seeing. This is either energy that someone is coming towards you, and like the way that they're coming towards you is just, it's feeling like that sense of like complete and total, like, impossibility point, specifically because it's seeing something or someone that is not necessarily effectively has had any capacity or ability to change. Or this is energy that is coming towards someone and saying, I understand now. I recognize what I need to change. I recognize what I need to bring forth. For feminine, it's going to be articulating on a masculine saying, I recognize that if I put you in a point of crisis that made you move away from me, I now realize and recognize that that is because I was not bringing in that energetic support system that you need. That it shouldn't be your role and responsibility to just create a place of comfort for me. You're not an oasis. You are a garden. Feminine, recognizing this right now, feminine seeing that right now, having a masculine that's understanding and recognizing that is coming from a masculine taking full accountability of how they may in the past have been moving in a way that was not conducive to a viable partnership. Masculine working through this right now, if this is a space or place where you tried to open up to feminine, you tried to energetically open your heart space, this is a feminine that may be coming back towards masculine and saying, I realize that my act of pushing you away at a time that you were trying to be vulnerable with me was not what I intended. So that ability here, even too, is like where we see that point being, again, the observation between discernment, between something that feels like a cycle that is repeating versus that ability of someone to come towards us from a point of healing. And the healing comes from the observation of accountability. Continuing to take clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread is, we have here our Page of Wands. And we love to see this card because this is that beautiful energy in relation to communication. Remember what I said about discernment right now? And this is what is so lovely about this, because again, what do we see for the energy in the divine union? The energy of the divine union says there's nothing that you can't be said that will not be met. This is the energy of the divine union, almost building that infrastructure and saying it is safe. This is a safe space. You can articulate and amplify anything that you want in this modality. So what is the energy in the divine union frequency, in the heart of it, doing? They're moving towards each other with care, with caution, energetically protecting the other, grounding through, processing any feelings of doubt or fear and anxiety from an act of discernment to ask oneself if that is something that feels like it is actionable versus whether that is something that just needs to be energetically integrated within the self, in order not to necessarily feel like you are potentially overburdening someone in a moment that you feel like they themselves are going through the same exact experience or scenario. Particularly because we see here that the beauty of the divine union frequency is, again, this is feminine energy that feels like the masculine is so fastidious that a need that is expressed is a need that is fulfilled. So this is feminine that doesn't want to put negative or impossibilities towards masculine if masculine doesn't have some way to effectively adjust those. Masculine, for your part, you're also potentially doing a lot of that work, but you're doing it more in the realm of trying to find practical aspects to something. So this is masculine in confronting that inner child wound to a certain extent as well, because this is that moment of masculine having that point of addressing and understanding what they feel like is in their power to change, while also coming into a point of just being patient. So I have to say that even for the masculine energy right now, this is very hard work. This is a little bit harder for the masculine right now, because this is almost confronting a lot. I told you, a lot of that, and I mean, masculine and feminine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For masculine, it is addressing that anxious energy that wants you to move from like a need-based approach especially now if masculine saying like experiencing this moment saying like I need this and feeling like they need to slow something down for feminine. This is masculine going, what was that? What was that energy that I just felt myself that was like, I need this? Like that's stressing and seeing that like unhealed inner child, if you will, right? So being able to observe this right now, even now, it's not the fact that it goes away. This is masculine that's coming into a better understanding of self with this process of slowing things down for the feminine. Being mindful and being fastidious towards feminine is building a better sense of the self within masculine. Because again, that is that moment of feeling the energetic harmony of working to give towards someone, building towards someone's comfort level, even against one's own immediate desire space. My feminine, seeing a masculine that's moving in this capacity too, is again, feminine getting very fastidious. Feminine, again, wanting to navigate and work through spaces and places right now with masculine that feels a lot more like the feminine. And this is the healthy expression of like protection energy, of feminine not wanting to overburden masculine with something that feels like it isn't something that they can effectively do anything about, right? That's that energetic equivalent of not wanting to amplify a negative that can't find a place, that doesn't feel like it can be tangibly adjusted. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union, this ability to express to one another, it's the opposite, because this is that point of the ability to not not have to hold back. And again, I need to stress this. This isn't coming into an accusatory space. This isn't coming into a space wherein you're moving in a way or a point where you're saying like, I think this is happening, but saying, I have these anxieties, I have these fears based on the way the other is moving. Because remember what I said, masculine is moving right now, wants to rush things forward to a certain extent. Feminine wants to slow things down, coming into divine union. There's a lot of room right here to misinterpret the actions of the other and to assume they mean the opposite because they're not the way that you energetically move right now. How do we clarify that? We clarify that from an inquiry-based approach, not assuming the worst, but articulating on our doubts and fears so that the other has an ability to lend that clarification point. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This opportunity or this situation, this is a moment that we potentially see that there's some kind of energetic return that's potentially happening here. And that energetic return could potentially be leading to some energy coming back into potential tentative work towards union. There's also a lot of energy that someone coming back in this fashion right now may be indefinitely confirming that something does not have an ability to change, which is allowing for a lot of clearing of karmic energy right now. And that is all coming from whether and how someone is approaching the other. If someone's coming from, again, a need space, saying, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, then this is almost that energetic point of seeing something and saying, this is not ready to be healed. This is someone that's coming towards me and demanding something instead of wanting to give. If the energy is coming forward right now and saying, for masculine, I recognize what I was not giving you. I am ready to talk about what I was not giving you. I am ready to open up my heart space. I've healed. I can talk about these things now. This is feminine saying, this isn't feminine running back into those things. This is feminine being tentative and saying, I'm willing to listen. If this is masculine that's experiencing a feminine that's saying, I need you to go back to who you were before. I need you to stop being the person you are now. I need you to come back into where you were, and masculine saying, I was becoming open to you. I was showing you my true self. I was moving. I was in a state that I was ready to open up in that way so I could be completely vulnerable with you. This is masculine potentially energetically clearing a cycle by saying, you don't truly want who I am. You want the illusion of who you thought I was. And almost masculine moving in that point of personal accountability and apology saying, and I'm somewhat responsible for that. Much like the feminine in that modality going, I'm somewhat responsible. If I created a framework wherein you felt like you could only always come to me from a need-based perspective, this is both energies taking a little bit of accountability here. While we see and recognize that for the energy right now that is coming into partnership, back into potential union, this is energy of, again, feminine potentially going towards masculine, saying, I recognize that my pushing away at a time that you are being vulnerable potentially led you to moving away from me. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to experience your truth. I'm ready to meet you here. So we see that there could be a lot of this energy right now. Again, separation, like indefinite, being like something that feels like it's validating exactly why you left something because it's coming back in the same expression, or feeling that energy of someone coming forward, having that point of accountability, having that point of observation. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is clarification. We've got here our Queen of Cups. We love to see this. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This modality here, this is beautiful. Look what these energies are working through right now in the divine union frequency. And it's all coming. Remember, I know you guys were all frustrated a few days ago because masculine needed to slow things down. Feminine needed to speed things up. I told you you were hitting a little bit of that, like pushing the envelope, if you will, onto each other's comfort zones, but in a mindful, healthy, loving, productive way. Because again, there's the difference between pushing someone out of their comfort zone versus challenging someone to move in a way that amplifies their highest self. We see here what's happening right now for the divine union. Energetically masculine, moving almost into that child energy. This is that moment that masculine recognizes and realizes that when the masculine energy is in a place where they feel emotionally safe, it actually is enlivening because it creates a space where masculine feels like a healthy child. It creates a space where the masculine feels safe, seen, and supported, but not from a place of a masculine feeling like an unhappy child. It creates a space of a masculine feeling the full breath of being able to be their most authentic expression of self. And how is the feminine providing that? By feminine telling the masculine energy, it is emotionally safe to be in that modality and expression. Even now we see that. And for feminine energy right now, again, cultivating, not wanting to bring an unnamed anxiety or an unnamed fear to the feet of the masculine. This is feminine also working in this capacity because these energies are building this sense of energetically working on cultivating their frequency to the sense of addressing and understanding what feels like it's worth saying versus what feels like it is being grounded. By masculine being able to like face those fears, those unnameable fears of the self, that is how the masculine is healing the inner child right now. And for feminine's, again, remember I told you feminine's like, I'm old hat with this. Remember I told you yesterday that masculine's like potentially even going to feminine right now, being like, I've got all these feelings coming up and I can't do anything about them and I don't know what to do with them. They're like literally unpacking this with the feminine. Feminine's going, well, you are in for some luck, because feminine's looking at masculine being like, that's all I do. This is feminine going to the masculine being like, welcome to the club. Exactly the same energy that I said yesterday, which is feminine being like, that is all I do from the minute that I appear. This is feminine going, all I ever do is navigate those feelings of the unnameable to process them. So this is that energetic harmony that we're seeing that's happening right now, because this is masculine taking a page from the feminine's book on how to emotionally process. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. The energy that's coming into divine union, are you allowing those doubts and fears to self-sabotage something that's moving in the right direction right now? Or is the masculine going to be emotionally open and instead of assuming the worst, express them? And it's hard because this is masculine energy that feels that viability point. It makes you feel like a child to bring up a fear towards the feminine. But guess what? That's how you heal it. You don't act on the fear. You tell the feminine the fear. You express the fear to the feminine. That ability of masculine, bringing that forth to the feminine, is showing a world where the feminine is eager to be able to alleviate, put that balm on that circumstance or situation. But again, a wound that is not expressed is a wound that cannot be healed. So we see even now for the energy coming into divine union, that observation point, that's what's fortifying and building this connection. Feminine, same thing, being able to navigate and express a point right now. Potentially even again, masculine energy going towards feminine, and feminine not coming into an accusatory fashion. Almost again, feeling that value point in terms of articulating to masculine. And feminine, we have to stress here, a lot of the feminine energy is almost amplifying this, not because they've seen that expression in this masculine. This is feminine almost feeling the trauma of past circumstances and situations that may have moved in that way. What is feminine energy doing? Feminine is articulating that to the masculine, and masculine saying, again, the masculine energy that's in a point of healing going, oh no, that's that clarification point that's coming through, because this is, again, what is creating the healing act here? The expression of a fear that is immediately alleviated, because the divine union frequency does not punish someone for articulating on a fear. It does everything it can to try to mollify it. Masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, this is that moment or modality wherein we see that there may be some energy right now that's coming into, this is either one side or the other now. And it's either one side or the other. There's something that's coming through right now, and I can feel that heaviness. This is either that moment, if this is masculine coming back towards feminine, this is either masculine coming back towards feminine in the way that they left. Almost an amplification of why they left, especially that need-based mentalities coming back, almost like, again, if this is masculine, like exacerbating on like a situation where they're saying, I need you. This is feminine. What is feminine doing in that modality? Feminine's going, I can't help you here. I can't energetically help you. Because this is feminine looking towards a masculine, if they're moving in this way, much like a feminine would look at an unhealed child. And saying, you have to learn that you can't just come towards me when you need something. You have to come into that maturation process and realize that energetic exchange means we are there for each other both. We help each other. You can't just leave me in an abandonment state and then come back when you need something. Whereas masculine and feminine, masculine that is healing towards feminine right now, what is the masculine doing? Masculine energy is coming forth to feminine and saying, I recognize what I was not giving you. I recognize that I was coming towards you from a point or space where I was only asking for things instead of looking at what I could offer you. And so that ability, and not offer in a tangible way, offer in the way of building an energetic connection that feels like it's in balance. So this is, again, this is coming through right now in the final separation cycle of energy that feels like it is not in alignment, and getting that validation point in the movement of something back in the return that is validating that is in fact a moment that someone's at peace moving forward. Or this is a moment that may be creating the tentative start of some new reconciliation energy. Whereas for masculine right now in separation, this is, again, either a modality that we are seeing wherein the value metric is potentially coming right now of, again, recognizing something wherein something has reached a limitation point. If this is feminine saying, I need you to go back to the person that you were. Masculine being like, I can't do that. I was opening up to you. I was expressing to you the fact that this is who I am. So this is almost, again, masculine coming into a point of alignment and saying, I don't think that you want to be in alignment with me. I think you want to be in alignment with a false sense of self. And again, taking some accountability and responsibility for that, much like the feminine that may have taken that accountability and responsibility for creating the need-based matrix wherein someone felt like that is like a way that they could approach them. Versus the masculine energy right now that is experiencing a moment of feminine saying, I'm ready to embody that truth. I'm ready to meet you where you are. I'm ready to do what I need to do. I have space to be able to accept and acknowledge that point that you are trying to come towards me at a point of openness. So we see even now This is a lot of healing that's coming through one way or another. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 9 of Cups in combination with our 2 of Swords. One card to clarify, please. Magician in its reversal. And we love to see this right now because, again, one of the things I need to express is this moment of moving through things right now without a sense of falsity. A lot of integrity and a lot of clarity coming into play right now. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This modality that we're seeing, this is the expression, and in the divine union frequency, this is doubting of the self. This is heavy work here. This is that feeling of anxiety or that expression of anxiety that's potentially coming into play here. And what is the energy in the divine union doing for one another at a moment that they are doubting oneself? They're amplifying the ability that they have to believe in the other. This is the beauty of the strength of the divine union frequency. The divine union frequency is one that even when you articulate and say, I have doubts, I have fears, I doubt my own ability, what does the energy say? It invalidates it. It invalidates it. It says, this is almost that energetic equivalent here, and I need to stress this even now. This is the weight and value of feeling like you're moving with energy that truly appreciates, that truly sees you, to help you recognize what, again, feels like a moment of personal doubt versus something that is actually effectively there that can be adapted and changed. This moment or opportunity here is, again, bringing forward not the anxieties, not the doubts, not the fears, bringing forward in a way and saying, I have anxiety, I have fears, I have doubts, I question myself, I question my abilities, I question this ability here. Is what we see is the amplification of the energy now coming towards each other and saying, I believe in you. You can do this. I believe in you. You can do this. Amplifying that positive energy, reinforcing it. And that's the beauty of the divine union. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be strong all the time. It leaves a space for even in that modality of weakness, as long as you're articulating it within the self, the energy is quick to amplify what is yours to carry versus what is not. This is that clear mirror that we effectively desire and aspire for in partnership. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This ability to recognize this. This is why we see, and I got to say, there may be some energy that fell into separation because you let yourself self-sabotage something. Letting those doubts, those fears. How are we recognizing what feels like it is moving on that positivity track? You're bringing those doubts and fears to the mirror of the divine union. And is the energy pushing you away for having doubts and fears? No. What is the energy in the divine union doing? They're reinforcing the positive. They're not shielding the mirror here. They're effectively saying, this is what is true. This is what is true. That is an internal fear. That is a doubt. That is a self-doubt. I will show you. It's not just affirming it. This is the energy that wants to go now over, wants to go over and say, I want to go over to show you so much that fear is one that exists within you. Because again, it's not coming from that accusatory space. It's coming from a point of personal observation. And what is the energy in the divine union doing in a moment that someone expresses an anxiety, expresses a doubt, goes, I want to alleviate that. And that even now, that is reinforcing the energy coming into divine union in terms of the amplification that, again, this isn't a moment where you come into something and you express a need or fear and someone goes, that sounds like a you problem. That's not true. Why would you say that? This is the energy that goes, let me show you. I understand why you might feel like that. Let me show you. Let me show you. Let me show you. right? What do we do when we have doubts? We show more. We alleviate the fear. Masculine and feminine energy right now, that's the problem with some of these circumstances and situations that feel like they're so challenging. It's creating this moment of deep discernment that's effectively required. Because what we're effectively seeing right now is, even now, and I'm seeing here two different sides of this. Some of this energy right now, someone coming forward and saying, I can see now how the way I used to move in the past was not coming from a state of authenticity. I can see now what you are seeking that I was not providing. I can see now I'm trying to show that to you. And even now we see that for a lot of the energy moving in that way, this is a lot of that wait and see, because again, words mean something, actions mean another. So this is why we even see now that there's something that's really important that's creating a pause point in terms of recognizing or identifying something here to try to understand if someone truly being able to articulate on what needs to be changed is one thing. Being able to show an ability and a conviction to change it is another. So even now, that accountability space for masculine and feminine is either coming through by way of discerning if this is an energy that's coming back more in the same version of where they left things. So again, if there's someone who, like, you know, if feminine left masculine saying like, you only are here, like, I only serve the purpose of your needs here, but my needs aren't being met. If this is masculine coming forward and being like, I've got a big need now, I really need you. This is feminine just going, like, almost not even, like, this is one of those moments when it happens, it's like you don't even want to articulate upon it because it's so clear that it's like the feminine just saying like, this is like the amplification of what the feminine was potentially trying to show something here. Same thing for the masculine right now, which is that this is masculine that tried to come into a place of authenticity and expressive openness with feminine, opening their heart space, wanting to build in that space. If this is feminine going, can you just go back to that false version of self? This is masculine being like, I can't. It's an impossibility point at this time. Because that's a masculine that discovered themselves on the path of understanding and honesty. Continuing to get clarification right now between our Two of Swords in combination with our Ten of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the Wheel of Fortune reversed. Masculine and feminine energy right now. That's a funny thing about the divine union. Divine union, I gotta say, we're getting a little bit of that pause point energy coming into play right now. That little bit of that stillness, if you will. Divine union energy, that stillness, it's not necessarily something that you run from. I gotta stress this. This is like the bus stop effect. When you stop on, like when you take a stop on the bus, and you like the view, you want to stick around a little longer. It's okay if something takes a little bit more time because you're in that point of positivity and enjoyment. Whereas for a lot of the energy right now, this in itself is also where some of these doubts and uncertainties and fears are coming from. Because again, what is the amplification point in here? The anxiety point coming through in that space of what cannot be controlled. Right? What cannot be addressed. Feminine, grounding that energy. Very good at doing that. A lot of education in doing that. Masculine, if you're opening up your heart space right now, it may be difficult because you may be feeling a lot of those in a way and a capacity that you might not necessarily be used to. Because that's what happens when you open up your energetic center. It leaves a lot more room for those situations and circumstances to rise to the surface, if you will. What are we seeing that's happening through this right now? Not effectively letting yourself operate by a trigger, but instead grounding in it, embodying it, holding forth, letting that be that moment of coming into what's almost feeling like the integration of those anxieties, of those doubts, of those fears, parsing out what you feel can be activated upon versus what needs to be controlled. It's Lent. It's giving me this energy right now that, again, through that sense of being able to hold in that point, it feels a lot like being able to effectively just embody the moment, even if that moment is frustrating, is how you can effectively move it back into a space or place that feels like it is a positive. So we see now that for a lot of the energy in this modality right now, especially the energy in the divine union, energetically grounding some of those doubts and fears into a place of like productivity and positivity. What's beautiful about it is you're not even doing it for the sense of self-fulfillment. You're doing it for the sake of the energetic harmony around you, right? And that's the beauty of the divine union. You're moving in a way that you wouldn't necessarily move for the sake of the other energy that wants to move in a different way. And your ability to try to adapt and accommodate them is what's teaching you that ability to navigate moments of frustration in a point of deep internalized acceptance. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now, this ability to do this ability to navigate, not let yourself self-sabotage something when these anxieties and fears come up, but instead recognizing that the divine union is a space that you should be able to present those. Being able to express an anxiety point isn't going to create a termination point, nor should it ever. I got to stress, to articulate an anxiety point and have someone effectively move away from you at that point is amplification of a warranted anxiety point. So we see here that for a lot of the energy right now, even feeling that anxiety of expression for fear of what would occur is now leading to a new ability of going deeper into the heart of divine union, because there could be this moment of, again, energetically saying to someone and saying, I know that's what you're used to, but that's because you are not in a healed connection, right? There's that observation point that comes through. And it may feel like a lot of like heavy work if this is happening, because what happens when we feel that value point in what we should receive at the point that we have something, we remember all the moments that we didn't. We get informed deeper into the heart of what did not move in that way. So even now that heaviness may be coming into bear, and it may feel like a point that, again, there is some energy here that may fall back into separation over this, because again, instead of bringing each other your points of anxiety from a place of describing how you feel, if you're moving into a space that feels like it's accusatory, if it's pointing fingers, if it's moving into like motivated action of blame, you're already falling back into separation, because you're letting yourself have those things self-sabotage instead of taking an inquiry-based approach to recognize and recognize that divine union energy will try to alleviate an anxiety point, will try to alleviate a fear. They're not going to punish you for bringing them forward. Continuing in separation right now, this is why we see energetically right now that there's a lot of this work that's effectively happening right now in relationality to feeling the weight and the sadness about something that may have reached a point that like you can't navigate further upon. Some of this heaviness, and I have to express this, even for some of the energy that is coming into some form of reconciliation right now, energy that has effectively understood what they need to bring forth. There is that feeling potentially of not necessarily knowing how this affects the situation going forward, because there's that moment that's effectively amplifying the differentiation point between like what you can bring forward to someone and say that you've learned versus what they can actually see. So we see that for some of the energy right now, being able to move in that place, even for the energy that's healed, that's coming into this space in terms of identifying what they can change. And I need to stress this, what it feels like a point that you can change within the self versus what you can't change. This is that point that we're seeing right now that is either way, there's a lot of heaviness here, because this is either the energetic frequency of someone who is recognized and is taking accountability for their actions and is just coming towards someone, not even for the sense of rebuilding, but from a sense of accountability and wanting to be able to come into that point of balance. Or this is energy right now that is effectively recognizing and identifying that something is coming back towards them, not in a way that it's showing an ability to be healed, but it's amplifying what is unhealed. And even now we see that that is a moment that feels like there's this like fundamental shift that's potentially happening, because there's something here that in both of those consequences and both of those situations, the desire is to heal anything that feels like an unhealed karmic cycle. So this is a positive, even though it feels like a very heavy energetic expression. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our 10 of Swords in its reversal and our Page of Wands, may I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our High Priestess in its reversal. Look at this. I need to stress, everybody needs to like give each other a hug today. Everyone needs to tell each other it's going to be okay. Everybody needs to like, you know, look at this. Look at these energies. Look how these energies are matching each other right now. Okay? Masculine and feminine. Those doubts, those anxieties, those fears, feminine and masculine in divine union right now. You guys are in the same space. This is what happens that can be so frustrating. It's like when you're energetically in the same space, you're experiencing the same frequency, you're experiencing the same energy, right? And so it's articulating in doubting in one's own self and in one's own ability right now. So what are we doing right now in the divine union frequency to help each other? I see only one thing. I see only one thing that's a problem. I see and only one thing that's a hurdle. What do you see? You don't trust yourself enough. You don't see yourself the way that I see you. You don't see yourself clearly. So what is the energy doing that's helping each other right now? Reinforcing and saying, let me show you what I see. Let me show you what I see. Let me show you what I see. Building that amplification point up, building that clear mirror up to help us in those moments that we doubt our own self. It doesn't mean that we have to put up that false front and assume everything is okay. It's that moment of recognizing, and energetically, almost again, the energy of compassion here, the energy of compassion that's coming through in the divine union frequency is one that's amplified in saying that the reason that they care about one another is because they realize the level of the bar that they hold for their own self is one that they're constantly questioning their own path forward at every moment. This is the energetic healing that's happening right now in divine union. The act of compassion in telling someone your ability to constantly doubt yourself is your gift. It is your grace, because you're not moving forward from a state of righteousness and assuming that you're right. You are constantly, carefully asking yourself at every step if that is the right direction. And so the energy in the divine union is affirming to themselves and saying it is the right direction because of that questioning. Don't hate the questioning. Embrace that is the compassion that keeps you on your own positive path. So this is a very difficult message to be able to convey, because it's looking at someone that you recognize is doubting their own work at every moment and saying that is why the work is important. It's because you don't assume that it is right. It is because you are so careful, and you are careful with yourself most of all. So energetically, there's a lot of support that you need to give each other in that divine union frequency right now, because this is a very energetically heavy message coming through. Masculine and feminine energy right now. This is even now that expression of a deepening of a divine union partnership here. Because what is happening here? These are energies that maybe even saying to each other as they go into divine union. And this is why it's going to feel kind of heartbreaking, even as it's feeling like it's a breakthrough. When you have a breakthrough, it can feel like a heartbreak at the same time. This is that energy. If you're bringing something to the door of someone, if you're bringing that anxiety to the door and someone immediately clarifies it, and someone says, well, why would you be afraid to tell me that? This is that moment that you look at the other and say, who told you you couldn't say that? Who told you you couldn't ask that? Who told you that that could happen? Why did you think that that would cause a problem? Why did you think that I wouldn't want to heal that? If you were uncertain, why did you think that you couldn't bring that uncertainty to me? There's no space that I wouldn't want to try to alleviate your fears. So that ability here in recognizing and identifying it, it feels deeply heartbreaking, because it's that moment of accepting and understanding that any space or place that you have moved in the past where you felt like you couldn't express a fear without being punished for it, where you couldn't bring forth a question without it being navigated or slapped away, that's that moment that amplifies the pain in recognizing that the act of compassion is always to be able to take something that feels like it's coming from a point of a question and realize that the compassion comes in terms of offering a balm and offering a positive to that question, not punishing someone for asking the question in the first place. So this is fortification even now of energy that's moving into divine union through that moment. But it feels like it can be a little bit of a heart crack moment when that happens, because it's that moment that re-archetypes and restructures what may have happened before that made you feel that that was what you could expect. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is that moment that we're seeing that feels like it is the amplification point between what is ready to be healed versus what feels like these are diverting paths. And again, that's a heavy moment, that point of acknowledgement. And this is the limitation factor between recognizing what is in one's capacity to change and adjust versus recognizing an inviolability point and coming back into harmony with someone. It's heavy here. And we see that the two different modalities that are effectively coming into play in this moment are being amplified by, again, either a moment wherein masculine is being either asked to move back into a past version of self by the feminine, or feminine that's coming towards masculine right now, which is effectively building that sense of confirmation of saying to someone that this is I can't. There's no way that this can productively move forward. Or there's a moment here of feminine, masculine receiving a feminine that says, I understand. I can now recognize. I know I need to hold space for this. I cannot let you live an illusion. I need to recognize that this is who you are, and this is what I can expect. Versus, again, a feminine energy, and that's going to feel like you see that discernment that's happening here. Versus what is in our power to change and control versus what is not. Versus a feminine energy right now in the same modality of experience, wherein there's a masculine that's either coming back towards them, amplifying that need base, saying, I need you. It's a bigger need now. Look, now it's a big need. Look, every time you go, like the longer you stay away, the need gets bigger. This is feminine saying, this is not, raising your voice on the need doesn't fix it. You're amplifying what isn't working. You're validating the fact that this is something here that isn't necessarily healed. You're showing me in the expression that you're returning that it's just getting bigger instead of healing. This is feminine that is, again, either experiencing that right now and saying, I need to close this karmic cycle because there's something here that's showing me that it doesn't show an ability to come out of that modality. Or this is feminine that's experiencing masculine that's approaching and saying, I see it now. I see it. I see that I only come towards you when I need something. I see that I look at you like you're an oasis. I see that I never move into space and asking what you need. I never work in that space of recognizing that I need to be a gardener. I can't just come to you as an oasis. I need to be a gardener. So we see that a lot of this energy right now is either, again, coming into tentative potential acceptance, or this is the affirmation of pathwork that is leading in very different directions. It's heavy. Next card, between our Page of Wands in combination with our Queen of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Pentacles. And this is why I say this act of discernment that's effectively happening right now is the amplification of what is in one's power to change versus what needs to be accepted. And what we're effectively seeing right now, and this is why we see this may even be leading to new energetic connections for the energy that is now coming into a point of saying, I just need to accept it. If there's something here that is not coming into a modification point, this is that energy that's just coming into that point. And it feels like that resignation and being like, I can't do anything with it. Like that's that point. And that feels very heavy. But what's happening on the wake of it? Do you see those two energies I just talked about that are on the healing cycle, that have reached that point and saying, I'm not seeing that change? Bonk. They're right there. They just need to turn around and see each other. They're like right next to each other. They're like going to bump into each other in the process of trying to walk away from something that isn't necessarily serving that energetic purpose. While again, the energy in separation that is coming into healing over this is the energy that's recognizing and saying, I see now what I needed to bring forth. Masculine, I need to work with you. I can't just be acting like another child. Feminine saying, I need to be able to be emotionally open. I need to be able to embrace and embody anything that you truly are, because that my ability to hold space for that is the amplification of being in partnership. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, that breakthrough moment of potentially, again, not letting yourself get triggered, not having, there is some energy, I will say, there may have been some energy that fell into separation because you let yourself move into a self-sabotage modality, moving into an accusatory framework instead of coming into an inquiry-based approach. For the energy right now, moving into divine union, recognizing the energy of seeing that the divine union frequency is never going to shy away from answering a question. It's going to move deeper into it. It's going to it's actually that moment of someone going much deeper, doing everything they can to alleviate that doubt and fear. This is the affirmation of coming into divine union, because this is that moment that feels a little heavy, because it also feels like that moment of recognizing the energy that would have had you feeling that that wasn't the case. Once you experience it, it feels as natural as breathing. And and it amplifies the spaces and places that did not provide that, because the truth that we offer each other is the gift. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, this is that amplification of not wanting to burden the other with something that they cannot tangibly change or modify. And even now that's feeling like a weight that the other's carrying, but that is the weight of, again, grounding into one's own energetic space is a gift that you're providing each other, because it's that moment of not wanting to put one's own doubts or fears on the other by cultivating and curating the energy around you to a certain extent. That is that harmonic, if you will. But even now, it's that moment that's amplifying the affirmation that is coming through, because you're recognizing, right? You're seeing those doubts and fears coming up. And because you've grounded them, they're expressing themselves as doubts and fears of the self. And what is the energy doing right now? Be brave. You can be brave. You know what to do. Continue to move forward in the way that you need to. That supportive energy that we see here. That ability right now to support each other in divine union is the gift, energetically and emotionally, because it's that point right now of, again, questioning on oneself that is being reinforced by the other. Continuing to get clarification right now between our Magician in its reversal in combination with our Wheel of Fortune in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. It's hard. It's hard. And I think that one of the things that needs to be expressed right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union is when you're moving in a frequency that feels like it is in alignment, it amplifies a lot of the energy that's not in that same frequency. It's heavy. It's burdensome. You want to extend this. You want to be able to provide that path work here. But again, it is that recognition point that your ability to discern and recognize what is not working around you. That ability in itself, in a way, is the expression of your own healing journey, right? because it looks hard, it looks worse, it looks harder around you as you continue to heal, but that's because you're going in the right direction, right? It's like I told you, that path of discernment to a certain extent. What's really important is not letting yourself kind of feel energetically overwhelmed by all of the things around you that you feel like you wish you could put that healing towards. Right? There's only so many spaces or so many places that you can move in that way. So we are identifying and recognizing energetically here heavily right now. There's a lot of that path work that we're effectively seeing that's just effectively like requiring that sense of, again, not letting yourself get overwhelmed by all of the difficulty around you, but instead just focusing your intentionality on what you feel is in your own capacity and viability to change. And even now we see and recognize that is a difficult space, because even now, what are we seeing that's happening energetically? There's that feeling that sometimes happens where you feel overrun because there's so much that you want to do. There's so many things that you feel like you need to do that you're energetically feeling that point of doubting one's own self and your ability to do it. So what is the energy in the divine union reminding each other on? Your ability to both feel like that, your ability to collectively feel like that, your ability to hold space for each other and support each other as you navigate that feeling is that point of strength. Because this is the energy that says and is almost articulating that is the expression of compassion that is coming through right now. And that act of compassion, that act of openness, in a way, is the beauty of being in the divine union, because that is that fortification point that says, it's not just the fact that you're doing this to serve your own moment. You're doing this, you're moving through that sense of anxiety and fear because you are working so hard for the sake of the energy around you that you feel needs that level and degree from you. Right? This is that energetic equivalent right now of the heaviness of, again, moving in that direction of like trying to bring in a pathwork of healing, doubting your own ability to do so every step of the way, but not necessarily letting it get you off your own alignment. Right? So a lot of this energetic support happening right now that is like amplifying a needed ability to really reinforce that stabilizing energy, even in the wake of a lot of that like frustration or chaotic energy that you may be feeling is surrounding you at this time. Continuing, masculine and feminine, I need to stress, like coming into the divine union right now, this amplification of potentially, again, being able to work through, bring and presenting your fears and your frustrations and your anxieties to the other, instead of you letting them overwhelm or override you. Even now, we see here that it's almost like creating that same energy of like, it's like I want to describe this as like a point of like clarity and understanding. And we do see here that like energetically for masculine and feminine, it may be having a little bit of a different experience. Because for the masculine that's effectively moving in this way, what we're effectively identifying is this is that moment of, again, recognizing those path places and the place. Like what happens, again, I'm just telling you, what happens in those moments when instead of acting upon the doubts and the fears around you, you move from a space of authenticity. You just bring them forward to the feminine so that they can alleviate them. This is a moment that will build the point of clarity in terms of how not doing so in the past may have led to some separation points. That's why we see that this is energetically heavy, because this is a breakthrough point that potentially is happening for a lot of energy moving into divine union. And it's coming from that state of opening up the heart space and authenticity instead of trying to like let those doubts and fears override something moving in the right direction and have you kind of move back astray from what it is that you're aspiring for. Same with the feminine right now. Having a masculine, being able to bring forth an anxiety point and immediately have that answered, immediately have that responded to. It feels heavy because it's giving you even more clarity on anything that didn't provide that prior to this point. Continuing. And for the energy right now in separation, this is that moment, and I have to stress here, I can see the heaviness on this right now, because a lot of this energy that I'm seeing here for separation is that feeling of energetic frustration that may effectively be occurring right now around situations and circumstances wherein we are seeing and identifying. One feels that you have done the full breadth of what one can do, right? Feeling some art, like seeing some expression of that. And it's either going one way or the other right now. The full expression of feeling like one has done all one can do and effectively having to step away from something. It feels difficult. It feels like really, really upsetting, but it's almost that moment that's like amplifying the need or desire to move away from something that is like creating too much of that energy of disruption within your own path. So for some feminine energy, I need to work through this because this is a little bit, these are some knots. Feminine energy in this modality right now, again, this is feeling like that hard love coming through, because that's that moment that we're effectively seeing wherein we're identifying and recognizing a feminine saying like, I know that potentially someone is coming towards me from a state of authenticity, but they can't necessarily understand the fact that like if they haven't recognized this, that they can't necessarily heal it, right? Because it's almost that moment that we're recognizing and identifying that articulates upon the fact that like, you know, if you keep seeing someone that's like moving towards you and saying like, I need, it's like that point of recognizing and saying, you need to stop thinking from the point of others kind of trying to serve a need for you. You need to think about what you need to give in order to receive. It has to be an energetic exchange. So this ability right now, this is why we see that a lot of energy is moving away from something, saying, I'm doing this with like the highest degree of compassion and care, because I want you to come into that space of seeing this within yourself so that you can heal. Like, don't touch it. And this is the energetic equivalent for feminine being like, I can't keep touching this because the more I touch it, the more that I'm not allowing this to heal. Okay? Like, don't touch it. And then masculine energy in this modality, what we're effectively seeing as well is this moment or opportunity wherein there's a point here where if this is a feminine that's like saying to you, well, can you please continue to like build that world of illusion around me? I really like that world of illusion. If we could just go back to that world of illusion, everything will be fine. This is masculine saying, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's not fair to you or me. Okay? Because the illusion I provide to you is an illusion. It's like I'm putting myself in like, I'm like, I thought I was building something to like a space that like I could keep you in. I was creating it around myself. What was I doing? That was crazy. Like, again, that point of understanding is where we see that level or degree of authenticity coming in. Now, masculine and feminine in separation, we do see that there are some paths here that are potentially coming into healing. But that healing is being most expressed right now in someone recognizing the pathwork that led to them coming forward from this point. For masculine, looking, and again, there's a lot of heaviness here, potentially coming towards feminine and saying, I was really off the mark. Like, that is that moment of, again, a lot of masculine energy potentially trying to come towards feminine and saying, I totally see it now. Like, I can articulate, I can walk you through everything that I did that I now realize was the wrong thing to do. And it's coming from that point of observation and openness and the accountability. While for feminine, this is that moment of, again, potentially there are some energies right now that are coming into healing by coming towards masculine and saying, I recognize that when you tried to come towards me from a state of authenticity and I said no, I was basically articulating on exactly why you might have been anxious to be open with me in the first place. So even now we see that a lot of that energy is coming through in relation to the healing, but it's very heavy energy. Continuing to get clarification between our magician in its reversal and our high priestess in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with of Wands. So the energy right now in the divine union frequency, this is that modality that we're effectively identifying. How are you helping one another right now? You're moving through the same exact struggle point. And this is the only, I need to stress right now, this is the only thing that we want to be a little mindful of right now, energetically, because we're seeing that even in the divine union frequency right now, this is amplifying a little bit of, I don't want to say a little bit, a large degree of internal energetic exhaustion, that feeling of frustration. But again, what is amplifying the strength of the energy in the divine union? Feeling like you're doing it together. Remembering that it's not your responsibility to fix everything. All you can do is what you can do. And this energetic reminder here that is coming through is reminding someone and saying your best. I know you don't think your best is good enough. I know that you're this type of frequency is like, does everything and then says, I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have helped a little bit more. I wish I could have done a little bit more. This energetic frequency is saying you're doing everything exactly as you should. You're working, again, what is the energy in the divine union saying? The only thing that you need to remember is that you can rest. You can have that space. You can have that state of understanding this, because even now we see the fact that that's that energetic frequency in relationality to feeling that strength of supporting each other every step of the way. Masculine, and we see that that's like an energetic need that's effectively here right now. A lot of amplification right now in just being a place, finding that, I'm saying strongly right now, for the energy in the divine union, for all of the energy, make sure you're reaching out to people right now. If you're feeling any of that energetic exhaustion, be the person, lead the conversation, start talking about it, let that expression occur, because I think you're going to find that you're not the only one feeling like that. It's heavy. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is that moment that feels almost, again, and there's been some energy that's potentially fallen into separation over circumstances of this nature. We can see some situations and scenarios now where if things were moving in a positive direction and someone effectively allowed their own abandonment wounds to effectively come into a point of being more accusatory, this is leading to separation right now. What is happening right now? Or again, what is happening for the energy that's moving deep into the heart of the divine union frequency? Being able to bring something forth to the other, those doubts, those fears, and someone almost saying going out of their way to alleviate them. The reason this is heavy is because that ability to see someone who recognizes that the energetic field of the divine union welcomes questions, welcomes doubts and fears, meets them with positivity, meets them with working hard to help alleviate them instead of punishing them for having them. That in itself is that amplification of energy that feels like it's giving instead of needing, right? Because that's that point of someone going out of their way to alleviate another's fears. Masculine and feminine separation right now. This is why we see that this is either leading to some very heavy reconciliation energy right now or some very firm endings. Because this is either that moment that we see that someone energetically comes back towards someone and says, I understand now. I see what I needed to adjust. I recognize what I needed to change. Versus the energy that's trying to come back towards someone with the amplification of the reason that the separation was caused in the first place. So that ability of accountability now is amplifying what feels like there's something that is going to be the thing that can be fought for because someone is able to come into a point of modification, versus what needs to be relinquished because it doesn't necessarily feel like someone is willing to, again, work with you so much as it is the amplification of someone that is trying to just increase on like whatever drove the separation in the first place, like more of the same, as it were, and being like, well, that's not healed, that's clearly not healed. Like, it's like the souffle that just keeps growing. You're like, nope, that's just getting bigger. That's just getting bigger instead of changing, instead of coming into change. Like that, nope. Like, I'm just getting nope. Like, nope. Making sure that you don't engage in that is like, it's a little bit of a hands off, if you will, because it's almost creating that point of being like, I can't even engage with it because it's just showing me that it's just an increase of what isn't working, because it's someone coming back in that same way. Now, continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our High Priestess and its reversal and our Page of Pentacles. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with here, here masculine and feminine energy in separation. Look at this. So what's happening right now? Again, for the feminine energy, oy vey. All right, so the energy of the feminine in this modality right now. This is that moment that, again, when all hope was lost, like, okay, when all hope was lost, this is feminine energy that's moving through this modality right now. Do you see these two? I'm going to do it again. What's happening right now? You see this bonk effect that we're getting here? This is feminine energy and masculine in separation right now. Again, there's two different modalities that are taking place right now. Okay, this is either, again, on the path of reconciliation, which I definitely see that there is some path work here that's happening. This is that moment of feminine having the masculine coming forward right now. And again, feeling some of that. There is that potentiality for a breakthrough energy here. Someone that like is authentically coming forward and being like, I get it now. And like, you're going to be able to see it, because I feel like they're saying to me, you can't fake this. Like, it's that emotional equivalent of someone being like that emotional equivalent of someone saying, I understand. And it's like that I understand that feels like you're going to be like sick. It's that, it's literally, it's making me like nauseous. It's that type of energy. So for feminine energy, I see that there's something about that expression that's potentially coming through right now. And even now we're seeing that for some of the feminine energy, there's something here about that path work that may feel like you're trying to move into that space of like healing on it. But again, it's taking that, even that I'm seeing is that like slow approach and being like, I appreciate this, but this, even experiencing that right now, it feels like a lot of overwhelm. Whereas for for some of the feminine energy right now, this is also that gut sink feeling, because this is that feeling of, again, seeing something and feeling that value add of being like, I can't change this. You're not showing a way to change this. So energetically, that's coming through heavily for a lot of the feminine energy and separation right now. Either way, what is happening for the feminine energy that is not experiencing that energetic equivalent of someone coming into the healing, here's that new energetic cycle that's effectively happening here, because what's coming through right now, here's the healed masculine energy that you're potentially starting to open and unpack these things with. This is that moment or opportunity of effectively even feeling the value of being like, there's someone that I wanted to heal with, but I can't fix them. It's not my responsibility to fix them. I can't heal them. It's not my responsibility to heal them. So we see even now that there's that point of feminine doubting themselves, doubting their own path work. And here's masculine on the same exact path work right now. So again, this is a lot of active discernment right now, because this is either, again, masculine energy that is either coming from a state where, again, if you opened up to feminine, if you were just being authentic with feminine, this is either feminine energy coming back to masculine right now saying, I wasn't able to receive that. I wasn't ready. And even now for the feminine right now, we see that there's some kind of path of reconciliation here that is, again, leading to the feminine. And the problem, I need to stress that what's happening here for the masculine is seeing a feminine. If this is a feminine that reacted that way when masculine tried to be open, and this is feminine energy that's trying to come towards masculine this way and say, I can handle it now. This is masculine even now feeling that sense or anxiety and saying, is that really true? Or are you just saying that because you don't want to lose me? Because that's masculine utilizing their own path of discernment between the difference between an authenticity of a feminine that's willing to welcome and embrace the masculine in that modality versus the feeling of a feminine that the masculine, if the masculine's coming into an open heart space, they don't want to experience a feminine that feels like they're saying that they're open to receiving the masculine that way because they don't really, they're trying to. You know, that's the problem with it, even now for some of the masculine. And having that breakthrough point as well feels very energetically heavy for some of the masculine. And this is why even now this is masculine energy that may be trying to articulate this with the feminine that's coming towards them in this way, saying, I know what you're saying, but I don't know if you really feel that way. I don't know if you're just saying that because you feel like you need to say that. So we see that there's a lot of this heavy corrective work that's happening right now to allow for the healing of karmic situations in a positive way. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency, this ability to immediately serve the other's need with clarity and emotional giving forth, it's heavy energy because it's reminding you of anything in the past that didn't provide that. So even now, a little bit of dual path work happening. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in the heart of the divine union, this is that energetic equivalent, if you will, in just bringing that sense of support to each other as you proceed forward at this time. And even now what we're effectively seeing to a certain extent is, again, masculine and feminine. Look at this energetic equivalent here, emotionally supporting one another. Masculine moving into a state or space where, again, saying to the feminine, I am emotionally supporting you. I know you doubt yourself. I know that you question your own abilities. I know that you question your own self. I'm here to tell you that I am energetically supporting you as you proceed forward in this way. Masculine, feminine saying to masculine divine union, I know that you doubt yourself. I know that you feel that sense of anxiety. I know that you feel that fear of what you cannot change, what is out of your hands to change. I'm going to tell you that you are doing an incredible job because your emotional expression is such that you always feel that limitation on what you can fix. That is also that sense of that open heart space. This is that combined energetic effort that is occurring right now that is leading forth in terms of, again, moving forward with that energetic power of emotionally supporting each other, even in those moments that you doubt each other. And it's beautiful, even though it's a lot of heavy energy today. Continuing clarity between our 10 of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our 5 of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? 2 cards coming out to clarify right now. Star in its reversal with our 9 of Wands, Swords in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now. One of the things that we see is, again, feminine energy, feeling that anxiety, feeling that uncertainty of the self. A lot of this is the articulation point of the feminine, feeling that sense of, again, wanting to, like that anxiety about being open and vulnerable to a certain degree. What is the masculine energy doing right now in that modality? This is masculine that's effectively saying to feminine, I am going to work to make you feel safe. I am going to work to make you feel comfortable. I'm going to do what is necessary to create that sense. And what is feminine doing right now to a certain extent in the divine union frequency? This is feminine energy right now that's feeling that effective expression, but is also, again, grounding some of that energy to a certain extent, because this is feminine energy saying, that's not your responsibility. That's not your responsibility to do that. That's feminine energy that's working through their own ability to find that. Via V, what did we see that the feminine was doing yesterday? Building their own sense of resilience. So we see even now energetically, this is feminine energy that's navigating those own feelings of vulnerability right now, but coming into a sense of being able to replenish and restore themselves like in their own fashion in that way. Recognizing, again, the value of a masculine energy that is always willing to fight for the feminine in that way and in that degree. But this is feminine energy that's almost saying, I've got this. We're doing this together. I don't want you to feel like you need to effectively continually put your concentration on me. I recognize what is effectively yours to like work through versus like what is ours to work through. So even now for the energy in the divine union, this is a lot of that path work that we're effectively seeing that is almost requiring that point of like healing coming through. And this is, again, having to navigate those feelings of what you can and what you cannot control. Very important right now not to let yourself get triggered is what we're effectively seeing. Because even now for a lot of the feminine energy right now, that ability to like find a point of confidence and grounding through situations and circumstances is effectively going to help navigate some of that. And we're seeing here that being able to like, I want to express it like this. Feminine energy is trying, thank you. Feminine energy is trying to navigate through some energetic equivalents that makes them feel like they have to go through a period of feeling like they're a damsel in distress. That's the best way I can kind of put it. Because again, even that to a certain extent is like something that the feminine is processing right now around circumstances and situations, which is why we see right now that equivalent of feeling the supportive energy of masculine in that dynamic of the divine union that wants to lend support to feminine. This is even now feminine pushing back against that and saying, I'm okay. I don't need that type of energy right now. I just need to be able to ground that to a certain extent is what we're seeing. And for a lot of the feminine energy in the divine union, navigating that is a little bit of the hurdle here, because this feels like, again, this is feminine energy coming into a better sense of self. The gift of being, again, in a supportive environment is helping the feminine wrestle with some of their own internalized fears in a productive way, just the same way that the masculine is. So again, I told you energetically right now, this is hard path work for both masculine and feminine in the frequency. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This ability of, again, recognizing situations and circumstances wherein we didn't want you to come into a point of self-sabotaging, right? We saw that that possibility was rising up for a lot of energy moving into divine union right now, especially because masculine wanted to rush forward. Feminine was pulling back, both showing a desire to move in the same direction, but taking on a different energetic frequency. How do you solve that? You communicate. You don't just assume the worst because someone's not moving the way that you would effectively assume that they would move when they have something precious. You build that point of articulation through communication. So even now we see that there's this point that is happening here that is amplifying the ability to move into the divine union frequency through authentic, expressive communication. Masculine and feminine in separation. And it's hard because in those moments, we are recognizing and identifying that the places and spaces that did not provide that to you, that did not give you that balm when you asked a question, that created a point that pushed you away instead of welcoming you in at a time that you needed that point of support. That is the adjustment that feels like it is coming through to help you recognize what feels like it is viable, that's pulling you forward, while also experiencing the weight of what was necessarily misaligned in the past. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is that moment that feels like a bit of a breakaway point, because this is that feeling of the energetic equivalent of what can be changed and adjusted versus what cannot be. This point of recognizing now, and we see now even for a lot of the energy in separation, identifying the difference between someone coming back towards you saying, come back here, I want you, right? And this is the difference between someone saying, I want you versus I want to work with you. I want you versus I want to work with you. right? That is the difference and the expression right now between something that feels like it is coming more need-based, something that doesn't necessarily want to change, something that wants to hold you in a space that feels like it's not working with you. It just wants to affirm that it desires to keep you where in something that doesn't work, versus facilitating an energy that says, I want to do what I can to make the adjustments so that we can have breakthroughs and work together better going forward. This is that energetic equivalent between what feels like it is a harmonic frequency of path work versus something that feels like it is circular, right? And so for a lot of this energy right now, we are seeing that having to articulate to someone the difference between wanting to go back into what feels like an unhealthy cycle versus coming into an adaptability point is effectively what is happening right now, that is allowing for the energy to recognize what doesn't feel like it is moving in a positive karmic direction versus what feels like it has the ability to grow and to change and to adapt. It has the ability to grow and to change and to adapt. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ten of Pentacles in its reversal and our Knight of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? We have here our Emperor. So masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. What we're effectively identifying at this time is, again, that energetic equivalent that is coming forth right now is coming through as, like, I want to say a profound, energetic, emotional expression, if you will. And for the energy right now in the divine union frequency, what do we see that's happening? It's having a different impact right now on how masculine and feminine energy are navigating it. Even in the frequency, it is creating some difficulty, because for the feminine energy, it is creating a place where the feminine is feeling that anxiety about being vulnerable, right? Because those anxieties, those doubts and fears that are coming through, that is the feminine energy processing a lot of that, like, past path work, if you will, right? And even now, we see that the feminine energy is moving from a point of recognizing that sense of recognizing and identifying the masculine energy that is around them, that is supporting them in some capacity, while also feeling a lot of those situations and circumstances that feel like they're beyond their own control, right? So we see here, even now with the energetic pathwork of the feminine, this is now the feminine trying to take a page from the masculine's book, if you will, which is, again, that accent, that ability to recognize what is in your power to adjust, to modify, to change, versus something that just needs to be experienced with a point of stoicism, right? Feminine's doing a lot of this work right now. It's hard because this is the feminine energy coming into a better understanding of self via the energy of the divine union. Masculine in the divine union right now, guess what? This is a maturation process. This is the energetic of equivalent of, again, what happens when you're working right now in the construct of, again, a feminine energy that isn't coming towards you specifically from a need base, that is using that act of discernment to recognize what they need and what they can control to a certain extent. This is also an ability for masculine, because this is masculine that's feeling that deepening of a connection with a feminine. That's like that amplification of feeling like, again, you're both operating on that path work in trying to tackle what you can't tackle together, like that overwhelm. You're like trying to do the work together. And this is masculine that's, again, and it's, I have to stress, this is building that masculine keeps getting fastidious about this. Masculine keeps getting, this is masculine that keeps moving into this like modality of like, the more that the energetic connection comes through, the more of masculine wanting to bring that emotional connection here. This is the masculine recognizing that the more that they open their heart space to the feminine, the more that they come into this sense of a deeper control of their own self. Because this is that moment that we're effectively seeing, that this is the masculine that's moving into that construct by means of carefully not just wanting to move for themselves, but for that sense of wanting to give forth to another. is advancing and bringing them into a heightened sense of themselves, right? So even now it can feel like that like overwhelm. It's leading to a lot of energetic breakthroughs. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now, that's that same energetic frequency. Because again, I told you there's something about the fact of masculine seeing how feminine navigated difficult situations and circumstances. A lot of this masculine energy, this is refortifying this. So even now, if there was a moment wherein the feminine energy's own slowness came to bear, if this is masculine that led with the heart space, if this is masculine that instead of like letting themselves fall into their own like cycle of like, you know, building that sense of worst case scenario, but instead just leading energetically, leading with that energetic emotional offer here. This is the masculine that's coming into a heightened sense of the self, because again, the good energetic equivalent of a frequency is if this is a masculine that has an anxiety point, it doesn't make the masculine look lesser in the eyes of a feminine. If a masculine becomes vulnerable, this is feminine almost immediately working to alleviate the doubts and fears of the masculine, because this is feminine feeling the validation point of a masculine that feels brave enough and secure enough in their own self to be emotionally open. Feminine sees that as the sign of a masculine that is truly strong. Final cards for today's spread between our Nine of Swords in its reversal, our Star in its reversal, and the Emperor. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Eight of Swords. Now, one of the things that we're effectively seeing right now for masculine and feminine energy, even in the divine union frequency, one of the things that we're recognizing here is look at what this is doing energetically right now for the energy in the frequency. And it's going to feel potentially a little bit more difficult right now for the feminine. Okay? That's okay. Some days are more difficult than others right now. And and again, this is something that's specifically happening right now for the energy in the divine union frequency. This is that moment or modality wherein, again, we are seeing that this is feminine energy that doesn't feel like they need to bring, like this is feminine energy parsing out what they are identifying is their own sense, their own anxieties, their own fears, their own weaknesses. This is feminine energy potentially, again, articulating to masculine those points of anxiety. What is masculine doing right now? Masculine energy is reinforcing through the act of acting as a clear mirror to the feminine, saying, I see you better than you see you. I see you better than you see you. You know what the only thing I see again is you doubt yourself. You doubt yourself too much. And this is masculine that, again, is feeling that same reinforcement from feminine, because this is feminine in the, I need to stress this right now, in masculine, having to step into that role of effectively helping to affirm the feminine right now. This is masculine moving out of that cycle of, again, saying, and I do it too. This is almost masculine energy realizing that, because this is masculine feeling the full weight of recognizing that, again, when they're feeling those points of doubt or uncertainty in their own self, they are stepping forward into their highest version of self, not just for the sake of themselves, but to be able to support the energetic energy that they realize falls into that point of doubting. This is that gift that gives back to itself. So this is why, to a certain extent right now, for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, this feels like masculine coming back into the full breadth of their own self-mastery via their ability to work in that environment of lending that energetic support forward towards feminine. That is that moment of, again, giving forth in a way, but towards an energy that isn't necessarily asking, but just wanting to build that sense together. And so feminine, we're seeing that that is that same energy that's happening here. Feminine, you're going through a lot of internal processing right now in the divine union frequency, specifically because you have that supportive architecture around you right now that is allowing you to almost go, deeper into your own, I want to say your own vulnerability, if you will. This is like, I want to say like energetic pearl diving, if you will. I need to stress this, right? This is like how you're healing something here. This is like the feminine energy going into like some energetic, like pearl diving, if you will. But feeling that support of the masculine saying, I've got your back, keep going. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency right now. Remember that energetic pearl diving? If this was masculine that was feeling that point of anxiety because this is a feminine that wanted to slow something down at a time that masculine wanted to speed something up. If you didn't let your fears override it, if you just presented that with feminine, what's feminine doing right now? Feminine's energetically pearl diving to show you that those fears are unfounded. They're going out of their way because you didn't accuse them. You expressed the fact that you had the fear. You didn't accuse them of something that wasn't there. You expressed the fact that you had an anxiety point. Feminine's diving down. Feminine's showing you receipts and being like, I want to alleviate your fear. I know you're not asking me to, but here you go. I hope this helps, because this is feminine energy saying, I recognize and I appreciate that you didn't just let yourself run forward and assume something that you didn't assume. You just brought the anxiety towards me, and I'm happy to alleviate it. Same thing with feminine to masculine. Again, if this was feminine having those doubts and fears coming into divine union, what is feminine doing to masculine? Feminine energy is articulating that divine, that deeper fear to the masculine to a certain extent. What's masculine doing? Affirming, saying, I'm going to go out of my way to show you that that fear is unfounded. I'm going to go out of my way to show you that it's not a weakness to reveal that anxiety point to me, because again, you're not accusing me. You're coming from a point of articulating a need. You're saying masculine sees, this is feminine saying, I have an energetic need right now. I need you to reaffirm. I need you to give me that confidence. And masculine saying, I'm not going to take it as a point of being angry that you asked. I'm going to affirm you, and I'm going to show you that there's no space of you asking something that isn't going to be met with healing. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is the closing out of some karmic cycles or the rebuilding of karmic cycles that are coming into a point of healing. And that is either going to be articulated in, again, an energetic frequency that may be returning towards you, but it's just an amplification of the way that it left. Seeing something and being like, that hasn't changed. That's bigger. It just got bigger. It's just more of what I walked away from. It's like getting that affirmation point. Or there's some deep, 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 deep healing here. There's someone coming towards someone and saying effectively, I see that this is something that I can change within myself. I see that there's something here that I effectively can change within myself. And even now we're seeing that in those moments, either way, a bit of a wait and see approach is occurring. Bottom of the deck on today's read is 5 of Pentacles in its reversal. So abandonment wounds are coming to the surface right now, but what's happening about these is like a lot of these are being processed in a very different way. And there's something about the observation point of the abandonment wound that is helping you have that point of allowing them to build a strengthening of the bond. What we're effectively identifying here is that moment of recognizing that when we experience an abandonment wound, as long as we don't act upon it, as long as we articulate upon it, in a way, the abandonment wound itself can help give us clarity on what is and is not. This is where the abandonment wound actually becomes like a lifeline, if you will. Because that moment of being able to articulate on the abandonment wound, to see someone coming into a reactivity space over it, is validating something that isn't working in service to the self. Whereas feeling a moment where you articulate an abandonment wound and then that is effectively utilized to like actually set it off, this is that moment of recognizing that that is something that is effectively occurring because that's an unhealed karmic connection, and it's amplifying that anxiety point or fear, when expressed, is like showing itself or it's revealing itself in the response to how it is presented. So we see here that there's a lot of that clearing up of karmic cycles right now that is effectively happening in, again, recognizing what happens in terms of the difference of being able to articulate on what you do when you feel like you are feeling triggered versus actually being triggered. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today with me and sharing in these messages. And we will do this again tomorrow.